Well, welcome back to another Cats on Guard, the podcast where real live airline pilots who are always happy share true life stories from behind the flight deck door. This is the podcast Cats on Guard, where we talk about why pilots meow on the radio and other things of interest to those of you who may be curious about what goes on up there. And I'm just sad today.
No, you're not. You're not allowed to be
I
sad.
am.
No.
I'm depressed. First, it's been a while since we've done a recording. I haven't seen your beautiful face in weeks. I've missed you. The seasons are changing. It's got me confused. It's got me wondering why did I open my swimming pool and it took, I had to get that wintry green, thick, meaty algae. And by the time that the water was clear enough, the air had cooled down to where it felt wintry again. And nobody's even been in the water yet. So I'm sad about that. I'm hearing about wars and famine and airlines that might go out of business. And I just don't know how I can go on about my day.
Yeah, well, if you know the airline medical system, you probably don't want to say that on public TV or public airwaves. You know why? I guess our listeners probably know why if they're familiar with aviation. But
I think a
you're
lot of our
talking about the people that meow on guard. Those people need a mental evaluation.
I think they do.
The people that meow on the emergency frequency while other people are trying to conduct emergency business on that frequency is, it's astounding. And I wonder, maybe they're sad like you, and that's why they have to drum up attention.
Maybe they are. Maybe they identify as cats and they've heard about a certain segment of the public that is trying to remove the litter boxes from schools and trying to take away their individuality. And, all they have left is being a pilot. So it's such
I I don't know if I could jump through that many hoops to get to. But I'll tell you what, though, I am terrified of how for being in 2020 something and aviation professionally being, 100 years old or more, we still haven't figured out a way to do it right for professionals, even recreational pilots, where you read these horror stories about people that said something once or expressed something that they thought they were doing the right thing, and the way that we are regulated, I won't specifically point my finger at the government. Yes, I will. Um, for the handling of it, you don't take away people's driver's licenses because they had an emotional, they got a breakup. No, you're not gonna be allowed to drive for 6 months because you cried while you were behind the wheel. Meanwhile, you were a risk to everyone around you, right? Um, so they do that though for pilots and any FAA DOT sensitive. If you need a medical certificate along with your certificate to fly or to work, you're vulnerable to it. And I'm watching a lot of these. You were just talking about um, like an airline going out of business, and I think to myself, if I worked for a company and I didn't know if I'd have a job next week, I'm not sure how I'd be emotionally fit to fly today.
And compound that by every pilot at that company. It's not just one.
Every pilot,
Yeah.
yeah. Or when big scary news happens about an airline or company, those employees are going to work, but they are not sure that their paycheck's going to come in 2 weeks.
Yeah. That's stress inducing right there. And according to the internet, which do we even need to say, I looked something up on the internet. Of course you did. That's where
Yeah.
people look for
I
things.
actually went to the
Um,
encyclopedias on your shelf, right? Because that's a very rapid source of information.
Recent studies suggest that nearly 13% of pilots may meet depression criteria, and many underreport symptoms due to fear of losing their flying license. I think that's absolutely true, and I'll bet it's way more than 13%.
I
I don't know if
13%
it's
sounds like a stretch. It
thir
sounds like a conservative guesstimate for, like, instant revocation of privileges and not so much like could receive some medical help here
yeah,
and there.
no, yeah, well, now this 13% refers to pilots meeting depression criteria. Okay, we're not always all depressed, but there are a heck of a lot more reasons why we avoid going to the doctor.
Yeah, I think the list, it includes what, like, anxiety, social thing, like depression, anger, what sadness, all kinds of stuff, right? Obviously, like, hey, if you're suicidal, like, let's not go to work today. That's a good thing, right? But okay, so here's what happens. You're in a committed 12-year relationship with your spouse. Everything is going magical, and you come home from your work trip 8 hours early or a day early because the schedule changed, and you walk in your house and your spouse is sleeping with the neighbor, right?
Yeah, okay.
Oh my god. No, 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 this is not the 13%. This is the 50% that we're not talking about outside of that 13%. And now your life is shattered, right? Your spouse is cheating on you. You got to break up, sell the house. Who knows what's going to happen with the kids, whatever, right? Are you, in the eyes of the FAA, mentally fit to fly after this event?
Well, not if you don't tell them.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is well, what are your options now?
Are you gonna
I'm
what
on
do you
my
do?
own.
What do you do? Is
What do
the
you
first
do?
call you make after you find your spouse in bed with the neighbor, you're gonna call the FAA immediately? I
Well,
don't
that's
think
what it
yeah,
says that a pilot will self-identify when they're not fit to
right.
hold their medical. And this is archaic language, as if this is like we're robotic, right? Oh, my brain hurts. I'm not going to work. So now, but here's the consequence to be doing the right thing. Let's say you have a trip in 2 days, right? And you're sad and you're at a motel, so sulking in the corner, and or whatever you do to cope with damaging
Wait a minute, hold
information.
on a second. Why are we in a motel? Is this where we went after we found our wife? We
You
found
know
the
what?
nearest cheap motel with our high-paying airline salaries?
Because once you tell them that you're sad, you're not gonna have a high-paying airline
Oh,
salary
right,
anymore, right?
right, that's true.
You start going into money saving mode. Remember that I told you when I lost my medical for it wasn't for those kind of reasons, thankfully, and I had to go into, "Okay, you're gonna be on, disability policy for until this is over." "Oh, 60% of your salary." 60%? Well, I better make some adjustments, right? And so, no,
Yeah,
we're not gonna go to regular hotels or go out on a
good
boat or any of
point.
that. So, because you know you need help, you also know the consequences if you're a pilot or crew member, any of the safety sensitive positions. I think controllers are subject to the same rules, right?
I think you're right.
And so okay, that was a good life event example where it could take months or years to get out of that hole, right? I mean, not being home on Christmas because you have to work, that's like a 1 or 2 day this sucks sadness. But the sadness of like a big situation, which apparently many aviation people have had these kind of things happen to them.
Well, let's take this a little further. We talk about these airlines that suddenly go out of business one day. All of a sudden, you've got uh, you got to start over because transfer seniority doesn't transfer, experience doesn't transfer. You got that senior captain who's been flying 20 years. He's at the top of the pay scale and he's still got 10 years left to go. But now he's got to start over at the very bottom of a new airline if they're lucky to get a job.
Yeah,
And
because they're got 1,000 other people
yeah.
or thousands of other people when an airline closes that are all hunting for those same jobs too.
So now that 50-year-old pilot has to go back to living like he's 25 again.
But the lifestyle hasn't kept up with, yeah, because you'll have like an
Yeah.
established lifestyle and probably yeah, I
You're
get it.
taking a huge hit in pay. You maybe now you're commuting. You got to sit reserve, which maybe you haven't done in 20 years. Do you think that's all going to contribute to a little bit of stress, anxiety, and maybe depression?
Yeah, well, so if everyone is sitting around like that and then everyone followed the rules together, the airline would collapse well ahead of speculation.
And not only that, if everybody followed those rules, what is that little document that we have to sign prior to every flight? leaving
The
the
flight
gate.
release, I
The flight
certify
release
that
is I certify that I am mentally and physically fit to operate this flight. I got enough sleep last night. I am happy and ready. Oh, yeah, we sign that every day without even a thought. I hand
every
that
flight.
yeah, every flight. I mean,
So
imagine. Imagine
so
if we
tell
actually
me
had to
this,
get a mental evaluation prior to signing that.
how about do those mental evaluations on December 24th and 25th at the airport?
Yeah,
No, seriously, the air system would collapse. Do it at the air traffic control facility on Christmas Eve when everyone else is carving a ham and a turkey and opening presents under the fireplace, and you're sitting at your desk moving airplanes across the screen, and the pilots are up there wondering, I hope their kids have enjoy their toys that you bought them, that are under the tree, or, well, kids, I'll see you in a few days, I guess, right? And or your wife's in the neighbor's bed. Yeah. It's like on Christmas Eve because you're not home. It, and then you're like, yeah, I'm totally safe to operate this aircraft with 300 people behind me because yeah, I'm definitely, the consequences are too, they're not protected. And I know the solution to this. I tell you, it's money, right? Money drives everything. I 100%, if the government subsidized the salaries of the mentally recovering, how do I word this? Do you see where I'm going with this? If
I
there was,
do.
and this is totally hypothetical, it would never happen. But if you were to tell pilots, hey, if you need to get help, we will cover your salary until we get you back, or you'll go on disability. You have 3 months to mentally recover, and we promise to get you back into health as soon as possible. You'd see, I think, more than half of medically certified flight crew slash controllers go get mental health because the majority of them won't, due to the idea of them not being able to pay their bills. And how does that make you any happier? How does that make you any less depressed, sad, or anxiety? Is, hey, when I go to seek my help, they're going to put me on indefinite 60% pay. Great.
It's
That's
interesting.
super, super stress relieving.
I I had a neighbor years ago who, as an adult, got diagnosed with ADHD. And he went on some medicine, and he said it was amazing, like, a whole different world opened up, like, he was focusing on things like he'd never been able to do, accomplishing tasks, in a way never before in his life, and I thought to myself, "There's plenty of pilots out there that probably have such a condition as well." Can you imagine being able to focus on your job and doing a better job of it because of the medication made available to someone, but we're not allowed to take it?
I think that's a huge, the ADHD spectrum, I guess. I don't know, you know, you may be heavily or minor, but the
You say I may have it? Is that what you're
I
saying?
don't know. I don't think any pilot doesn't.
Oh, you're probably right.
Like the symptoms, or not symptoms, but like the way a person would behave to be a 121, super structured, super rigid. You have to be robotic and also be flexible and also be attention to detail on these 264 switches. And right? Like
Yeah.
who fits that bill, that someone that will sit there and follow instructions and checklists intently without wanting to listen to outside things, but also wanting to hear 7 other things on the radio and verbal, it's like textbook, right? And we've got an
Right.
entire industry of people out there that have to do it this way. I I really, if we did, like, industry-wide testing, you'd throw the majority of people into that bucket.
Well, look at that. You remember German wings over in Europe?
Yeah, that
You
wasn't
know that
ADHD.
I understand
Sorry, I
that.
don't mean to laugh at, that's
No,
a
no,
morbid
no,
joke.
no. My point is, a very depressed, I would say, pilot found himself alone in the flight deck during a bathroom break and decided it was time to end everything. And unfortunately, him ending everything for himself also included everybody else on board the aircraft when he flew it into a mountain. That happened in, I want to find out what year that was, if you recall. It was like 10 years ago or more. And the point I'm trying to make is in those 10 years, very little has been done worldwide to address this issue. So I don't think there's any interest in it. These ideas that you just put out, throwing money at it, offering these leave programs to help people get better, no interest. Nobody wants to do it. So I think we're all going to be on our own, which is very depressing too.
Yeah, I think that if there was a better option, the companies aren't gonna go, "Yeah, we'll pay to make sure you're healthy." 'Cause like they say that, every corporation, "We want you to care about your health. We also want you to work 18 hours a day." But, um, it's all for show in reality, in until someone actually backs up your stability and ability to get help. Because if I was having an issue that would need to be, like, medically reviewed, I would do everything in my power to not have it looked at. Becau
100%. Yes.
because I have to, you know what? I'll have a great example for you, and I can't name names, but I was in a car accident a couple of months ago.
You just named your name. I.
What? No, but I mean, for whose policy this is, and maybe
Okay.
people can look. I'm sure
Okay.
plenty of companies have it, but it was an interim policy so that you actually, and I love this about it. And then it was like a, hey, you got hurt, you can't come in tomorrow, but you don't want to empty your vacation bank right now. Some companies, you get in a car accident, poof, there goes your vacation days for the year, right? Because
Oh,
you're
yeah.
or go on the magical disability policy and get 60% of your pay and barely pay your bills.
Yep. Yep.
Or you pay your bills and you have no money for that vacation that you kept your vacation days for because now you can't use those vacation days because you have no money to go. And now you're stressed and now you have anxiety and now you can't go to you see how it just like snowballs, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I got in this car accident. I was completely not at fault, and the insurance company knows, and the company knows, and everybody knows. This is a really sad thing, but um, I was out for 6 weeks, and what is the first thing that a husband and father, a homeowner, you know, person with activities for your kids to do, first day that came into my mind, crap, how am I going to deal with this financially?
Yeah.
That's not what a human should be thinking about after you hurt yourself in a car accident out of, obviously completely out of nowhere, bang, life changes, right? And so my HR has a policy that for up to, oh, I can't remember. There was a number of hours. Like, well, I think it was well in excess of the amount of time I needed off. Um, we're gonna pay you. Go get better. We just need to keep track of your recovery process and show us that you're trying really hard to get better.
It's
And you
kind of
can't milk
nice.
this forever. It was incredible. You know why? I wasn't stressed or anxietied or any of the symptoms that would have made me unfit to fly other outside of my physical ailment from a car accident. Because guess what? In 2 weeks, while I'm still doing physical therapy and MRIs and all these things, I knew that when 2 weeks my check would come. And that made and if more companies or more employers or the government wanted to figure this out, I don't know. If that was an option, people would get medical help all the time. Like, have you ever gone to work with, like, a sprained ankle or, like, a hurting wrist or
Yeah.
elbow?
Of course.
Because why? I can still do it. I don't need
Yeah.
to take time
Yeah.
off for this, right? Right?
Yeah.
That's the mentality?
Here's a story. Talking about your company paying you for however long you needed it. That was great. Here's a story from pilotmentalhealthcommittee.org. Back in 2021, a pilot was disclosed being on a low dose of anti anxiety medication, required to wait a mandatory 6 months. This pilot waited 6 months for an appointment with the FAA approved mental health specialist, who then spent more than a year reviewing the report, only to deem it outdated and order a new exam. So, all this time, this pilot can't fly.
Yeah.
Probably, if
Isn't
they're,
working.
yeah, not working, probably lucky if they're getting that 60% disability, maybe not even. So,
'Cause, the insurance company is looking to not pay you for any reason they cannot pay you.
sure. Yeah.
So they go, "Oh, you took those meds, 1 milligram over the prescribed dose. Well, guess what? We're not covering this." Yeah.
So, yeah, so we don't disclose. What is it? Who's that? There's a quote in the story. If you're not lying, you're not. If you aren't lying, you aren't flying. That's
That's
it.
yes. I've never heard that before, but it makes 100% sense. It's so sad. I mean, and it's one of those things that I don't think we can get the whole of America to put their arms up in outrage, right? It's not
It's gonna be a tough. Yeah,
because it's behind the scenes. You don't see it at the forefront. You don't now if on Christmas on December 23rd or whatever the day that everyone travels to their Christmas plans, the air industry shut down because all the pilots came forward at once. Then you would see like national outrage. What do you mean I can't fly to my aunt and uncle's house in Phoenix? And well, I'm supposed to fly home to my kids this week, or and it just doesn't happen. Well, then you could spark some. But there's right now all the people that drop off like that person with
you know
their
what?
medical review,
That would
you
never
don't hear
happen.
about it.
That would
You
never happen
don't,
because if every pilot at once did that, it would be considered a job action, and we would all be sued. We'd be
but it's
sued
not.
collectively by all the airlines, by the federal government. We would be probably thrown in jail for admitting to flying while depressed. It would never work.
Well, then how can we get it to work?
We can't.
We have pilot organizations that are advocating in Congress, and by that I mean paying off people to make legal decisions for our country.
I listen. How long have we been flying airlines?
A
100
lot,
years. 100
a lot.
years, right?
Yeah.
How far have we gotten in this little endeavor?
I that I heard a story recently. Gosh, I'm trying to put the pieces together. It was somebody whose life was in such shambles that bringing it up in cruise flight caused them to shed tears,
Yeah,
and you feel for that person, and based on like, if you are so emotionally upset, and then we're not talking about like, what do you call it, chronic anxiety or chronic depression or chronic this is just an event happened recently that made me cry to think about it. We're
yeah,
human, we have
yeah.
emotions. If I look, if I went to work 3 days after my dad died, I probably wouldn't be able to hear the word dad without being upset, right? And so this person was having one of those moments. Like as the other pilot, this goes to that the drunk pilot scenario. Hey, I know you shouldn't be getting in here working today. How do we? But you're already in the air now.
Well,
Like,
I've been that other pilot. I've been the guy listening to the heartbreaking story of a a home life just falling apart, you know,
and they're
a
at work in the cockpit with you,
and
and then
they're breaking not breaking down, but they're opening up and sharing this because we had a friendship that I guess was enough that they felt they could unburden themselves to me, or maybe it was just like, "This is my opportunity to get this stuff out," and I'm in that position like, "Hey, are you maybe you shouldn't be here," you know?
well, how do you undo that at 38,000 feet?
Well, okay, but then you land and you say, "Get off this trip," which uh, it's a tough position to be in as the captain of this plane. Who am I to say that this guy isn't mentally fit?
It's
But
not yours, but you know that. Okay, so let's say that you were able to talk this guy out of the trip, and hey, you need to go get help like now.
yeah,
And then they report that to their doctor, which is what you're supposed to do, right? You're supposed to seek medical care with your medical care people. And then it goes into the hospital system. Here's another one that bothers me big time. The EMR. You
what
familiar
is
with
the
EMR?
EMR? No.
Electronic medical records.
You know what? Hold on. Before we do this, I want to take a chance to address this acronym overuse that we see in the world. The EMR is one I've never heard of. And had I not stopped you, you might have gone on and on about it. But uh, I see this a lot in writing. I know I'm going off script here. I see this a lot in writing on the internet, and people use these acronyms, which oftentimes I don't know what they are, what they refer to, and they don't explain them. But yet you take the time to type out every other word in your post and spell it to it. So if we're going to use acronyms, let's explain what they are. What is EMR?
Electronic medical records. So in the last, I don't know, a few decades, we've converted paper charting at medical offices to putting them in a computer where one doctor can go home and go on vacation and the other doctor can show up, or nurse or any medical provider, and open up your file because they have permission to do so and take a look at what the last person did or the person before them or the person before them. Now, there was a few decades where things you might have done in the 90s don't show up in computers in 2010 because Those people with paper charts haven't put them in the database for 2020 or 2010, whatever. Now, now a hormonal high school kid could have an event or a series of events or a bad breakup or the parents sought help for their ADHD maybe and did something about it, and then 20 years later or 15 years later they're going to go to aviation college and they're going to get their pilot's license and become a professional airline pilot, and they don't even remember that they got care for such thing,
And
right?
that's something.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what's something you would have done in high school, like, really dumb? Like, my girlfriend broke up with me, and I yelled out, like, "Well, I'm just gonna drive this car off the bridge," right? Like, one of those, like, crazy teenagery
Yeah,
things you would
that
do to
must have been
you know
some girls. Wow.
Well, I don't know, I'm trying to think of, like, what other
Okay,
but
no,
just
that's a fine example.
people have yelled at the police, right? And, like, got upset for getting in between, like, family disputes and things like that.
Sure.
Like, there's plenty to read about on the internet for these stories. If these are pilots, controllers, safety sensitive positions. And then when that gets medically documented, you're not even thinking about it 10 years from now.
Yeah, you're a teenager at this point. Yeah,
But now you're a professional. You've spent, I don't know, what does aviation college cost now? $250,000.
it's a lot.
Yep. And you got your stuff and you got your medical certificate and your licenses and you did all your training and you got to the airlines. And then something happens and somebody at some point has to open up your EMR
Mhm.
and they just scroll back a little bit. Let's go see what happened in the last few years. Oh, what's this from 1996 or whatever the
So
entry was made.
when you were 16 and you were, an emotional teenager dealing
Yeah.
with your first ever heartbreak.
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
I don't know, just any of the above. Right?
Or your dad told you to mow the lawn and
Yeah.
you threatened to kill him.
Or you threw a baseball through the window, right? And then they're like, you know what? We're going to call the cops. And the cops are going to, a domestic disturbance, right? Or something like that. They want to call it. Who knows what gets described as. And then over the 15, 20 years, you changed your life. You're a professional. I mean, changed your life. It was a one emotional day 20 something years ago. Well, I know someone personally who had something happen. It was a very responsible thing, but the EMR from years ago caught up to present day medical condition. Oh, we're going to peel back in your history and just do a little looking back. And they went, hey, you're not going to fly anymore because you didn't report this event 15 years ago. I don't even know I had that event 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? And so and that person never flew again. It went into that limbo that you talked about where where the doctors review the file, and then at the end of the file review, they say, "Never mind, we don't like this, do it again." And then you do it again, and then it reviews, and it just like perpetual lapsing of all of these things, right? It's a broken system. I just don't
Abs
know. Nobody actually wants to fix it.
No, you're right. Nobody wants to fix nobody wants to talk about it, and that's a big problem too. We don't wanna talk about mental health because, reasons. I don't know what they are. Why can't we?
We do. It's fake. It's a false front. Like, we care about how many companies have you seen on the internet about, "We care about your mental health,"
Well, yeah.
right? And
Um,
then go to put the mental health day on the calendar. Talk to your supervisor or their supervisor, right?
there's,
I mean, they don't actually want you to use it. They want you to get back to work.
I'm just looking through some of these stories of other pilots who have had mental health issues, and I caught here,
All right, I got one for you. I got one for you.
hang on.
Okay.
Like many U.S. carriers, Delta offers confidential peer support programs and counseling services for staff. It recently launched a new employee assistant program for pilots, offering access to therapy and coaching and taking into account medical certification requirements. Okay, Delta has recently started this program. First of all, how many pilots do you think even know about it? Secondly, what percent Delta has what, 15,000 pilots? What percent of those pilots are going to go to the chief pilot's office and say, "Hey, I'd really like to take advantage of your new mental health assistance program"?
Yeah. Where do you go? It's trust. You'd have to make an example. You'd have to show with names and faces, which also can't happen because of HIPAA laws, of the people that, look, hey, I received care and I still have my job and I still have my paycheck. That would be the only way to convince others.
You're right. 'Cause otherwise, the Delta and all the others are gonna stand up and say Congress is gonna stand up and say, "We created these programs, but the pilots aren't taking advantage of them. We can't help that." Or they're gonna say, "We've created this program, but it doesn't seem there's a need for it because nobody's taking advantage of it." So
It's
I
a
guess
broken circle.
oh my god. Yeah.
So let me tell you about a guy who never flew again because of this mess. He was out mowing his lawn in the heat, and I flew with this guy, oh, maybe 15 years ago. And what do you call it when you get so hot and sweaty that you pass out?
Is that heat stroke?
Oh, oh, what was that last word in there?
Stroke? Oh my god.
Yeah, right. I think his wife called for an ambulance because he was laying on the lawn on the ground. Did my husband have a heart attack? A concerned spouse.
Huh.
Just doing the right thing for the person you love. Hey, I need medical help. Well, the word stroke was what like rung the bell on the other end of the phone for the ER people or the what do you call it? That 911 operator, right? So the word stroke gets typed in the EMR, and then it goes to the ambulance
Jeez.
driver. The word stroke is put in the um, ambulance driver, and these people don't know what your career is or what they type and how it's going to affect the rest of your career and the possible stroke. They don't. It's a 20-year-old EMT riding along in an ambulance, picking up the next patient they got to pick up, drag them to the hospital. They type whatever they feel like typing to make sure they get their job done for the day. They don't know that that word is going to end your career, even though it didn't happen,
And is that
right?
what
So
happened? It ended this guy's
that's how
career?
this went. Yeah, that's what the FAA's position on it was: prove that you didn't have a stroke, because all this paperwork says you were having a stroke. And the ER, assessment for reported stroke or whatever and then the ER doctor to the physician, the personal care, and the personal care to the neurologist, to the well, I mean, when you're having a stroke, there should be some like evidence in your brain scans, right, to show this happened. But the position that the medical evaluator from the FAA took was show me that you didn't.
Yeah. So you mentioned HIPAA and you talked about EMR. I'm curious because a lot of times, especially in this day and age, there are a lot of consults that we do online. We do Zooms and whatnot. Let's say that a pilot is having, a family issue. Maybe they did find their wife sleeping with the neighbor. And while they're not necessarily depressed, they decide that they're going to work through this thing and they're going to see a family counselor and they're going to have a little online Zoom. Basically, they're having marriage counseling.
Yep,
Um, is this something that's reportable? I mean, I know it's reportable, but if this pilot doesn't report this therapy session, which is what it is,
they're in violation.
they are. And somehow the feds can find out this happened?
Well, they can. Well, it's not the FAA specific. If it was, they know the system would collapse. Like behind closed doors, they know that if they just did a quick AI search of every pilot's name and social and tie it to their medical records, you'd ground everybody.
Uh,
Anyone while they pick through at government speeds to find out if this is an event that's worth for them pursuing. And they'd rather cast a broad net in this position than take the liability of casting smaller nets and
so
finding the bigger fish.
okay. Okay.
Well, but okay, if you were the head of the FAA, how would you fix it?
Oh my gosh, you're giving me much responsibility here.
Somebody has to have that responsibility. The people that have it are currently screwing everybody in transportation.
Has there ever been anybody otherwise, though? Do we ever get competent people, or are they always just political appointees who did some favor for,
Two things two things run the USA: money and lawyers,
yeah.
right? And the legal complications are the reason that we don't that's the reason that shampoo bottles say don't drink this,
It's
right?
true.
Eh,
Caution,
eh,
coffee is hot.
exactly. And if we have to do this to the lowest common denominator, then no one's gonna come forward for help.
Well, maybe then we should all get a mental evaluation every time we get our medical certificate. Maybe that The AME that we go see, aviation medical examiner, AME, should
Hey,
be also a psychologist who does a full mental eval when we're there.
and then you put the literally your career in the hands of a psychologist to decide if your events that happen in your life allow you to continue having your career.
I mean, as
I
it
didn't
is
choose for
now,
my spouse to be in bed with now this is hypothetical, sorry, babe. If I was the pilot who had come home to the spouse sleeping with the neighbor, uh, you know, so that should end my career because I got sad about that?
maybe, maybe it should. I'm going to be the doctor who determines that. But as it is now, what do? We fill out an application with a whole bunch of check boxes. Have you ever had this condition? Heart attack, surgery, ear infection, whatever.
Dizziness is on that list.
Suicidal thoughts.
Yeah, okay,
Okay.
that's a big deal to check box.
It's a
That one
big check box, but how many people check that box?
0, because you know what happens if you do.
That's right. So I it's all performative.
So we have these boxes. Okay, so you the self-disclosure part. Okay, I will never check this box because I know this is a career ender box. That list of I think there's like 40 things to check on that list.
It's a long list.
The list should be about 7.
Which what tell me what should be the 7?
Suicide, stroke, right? Like irreparable, like amputations, like things that would prevent you from flying an airplane, right?
I don't
Like
know.
the re
I heard of a guy flying around with a wooden leg. Had a
uh,
years long
okay.
career.
Would you risk potentially being out of work for oh god, could be months, could be years because you reported dizziness?
You know,
Ever been dizzy?
I've been
I
dizzy.
don't know. I don't know. Everyone, I've spun my kids around in circles, right?
Yeah.
Yay, at the park. I went on a rope swing.
Well, listen.
Technically, we're supposed to check that box and then explain
Yeah.
in the box below.
Well, as someone who always lives their life honestly and truthfully, and I told this story early on in the podcast about the time I fell and hit my head and woke up unconscious. And I disclosed that when it happened. And now every time I check that box, I have to have you ever been unconscious for any reason? And I have to check that box every time. And you have to explain it in detail one time, and then on every subsequent application, you just write previously reported. But sometimes my doctor, who is a very good doctor, I enjoy going to him, but sometimes he will issue me a certificate and say, yes, I passed the exam. I'm good. I'm legal to fly. Then a couple weeks will go by and he'll call me up. He goes, what was this you put on this application? Didn't you read it before you gave it to me?
No,
But
it
then,
got kicked back, and then they
yeah,
ask for clarification from the physician, who then has to put a whole bunch of paperwork in to make sure that he approves that the reason you give was enough. But say that you answer, "I don't remember," but you had a concussion, you don't remember about it?
yeah, I was hit pretty hard that day.
That's what I'm saying. Well, maybe the different doctor might say, "Wow, if he doesn't remember, maybe we need to check out his brain and see," you know what I mean?
And
And now you're on indefinite hold.
And that is why pilots almost never change their doctors. Right there. Because you find a doctor that you like, and by that I mean doesn't ask questions, you're
Yeah.
not going to change. All of a sudden, you got to go to a new doctor, and this guy suddenly wants to know your whole life history, and he'll find things that he doesn't like. And that's no good.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's a broken system, but the only way to fix it is to protect the money and the bills paid. Keep the bills paid for the people that fly you around, right?
Yeah. So,
Um, if we truly trusted the system, it would be overwhelming on the system. I can from how many people you've flown with that you just know, you're like, you wouldn't pass the psych eval. Hey, your face changed immediately, right? Like you know, right?
yeah, it's true. True that. Go check out Worst Pilots Parts 1 and 2 here on Cats on Guard.
Exactly. It's a sad scenario. I look through every, year at my medical. I look at it like I'm checking or unchecking boxes that may or may not end this. It just and that creates an anxiety in itself, which we're not allowed to have. So no, it doesn't have any. There's no anxiety involved whatsoever. I'm a robot. I fill out paper. I
It's
That's
so
that
true.
AI voice or whatever.
It's so true. Yeah. And, like and you we get work do you get worked up going to get your certificate, your medical? Like, if
Yeah,
you're
because
sitting there in the office and you know you're gonna get an EKG because 'cause you're over the age of 40, you're probably not, but I go every year and I get the EKG, and not me, because I'm the epitome of health and calm, cool collectedness. But some pilots maybe sit there and their heart rate might start to rise because they're nervous. What's this guy going to find? And then they put the probes on you and your heart rate is soaring. And the doctor says, huh. And that
yeah,
just me.
and then it goes off the chart,
Yeah.
and all you see is your pool being sold off and your house and your
Oh,
cars and
no. Don't take my pool away. I haven't even been in it yet.
see? Yeah. No more roller
Oh,
coaster trips because 'cause you're on 60% pay for the next 3 years.
you're making all the fun stuff come back. Now, I don't know how to solve this problem other than, like you said, money, and maybe when you retire, you go become the head of the FAA and you can institute these changes, because otherwise, I don't think it's gonna change ever. I really
I
don't.
think I know how this goes. I know that there are people that do wanna institute change, and I think there's somebody that, I'm gonna get in here and I'm gonna fix this,
Mhm.
right? Somebody with a go get 'em attitude, and I
Yeah,
think that through the process of getting to that level, you understand the system. You work your like much like any other government position, congressmen and senators. On the way to that position, you learn how the system really works.
and you become corrupted by it.
Yeah, you drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah,
And then I've seen so many people go, "Hey, I'm gonna be the next chief pilot, and I'm gonna change things. I'm gonna make it better." And by the time they get to that position, they are no better than the one before them.
yep. Um, I don't think it's gonna change. I think it's only going to get worse, to be honest with you, and the reason I think that is because we're coming up into a time, uh think about the way our grandparents and our parents they didn't talk about problems. They went off to
Bottle it up,
fight.
you're fine.
It's so true. You go
Rub
off
some
to
dirt
fight,
on it.
you fight World War II, you've seen the most horrific meow ever, and you come back and you don't talk about it. And you raise your kids that way, and it's generational. But now we're coming into an era where mental health, I you know, not as prevalent as, say, let's try to cure cancer or heart disease, but it is being talked about. And our kids these days, I think, have more opportunities to explore getting fixed when they need it, and they have a better support. However, I think it's going to be a long, long time before that makes its way into the cockpits.
I agree. I speak at a aviation camp every summer that's held at my local airport where, um, kids go to learn about airplanes and careers and all kinds of things. And part of the discussion is, and it's kind of like a disclaimer is like, hey, it's none of my business, but before you spend a bunch of money on this flight training or whatever, you know, money you're going to do toward your career, make sure that you can actually do this, right? Like
That's right.
some people will spend thousands of dollars on flight lessons and they'll get to the point where they're ready to go get their medical certificate, which they should. So now we say, make sure you can get a medical first because they're colorblind
Mm,
and now they can't fly. I know a couple people in my neighborhood that want to, and they know that their child is colorblind. The parents I talk to, and they're looking for ways around it. And then, yeah, there's some paperwork in process. But, they're working on approving this. There's like glasses you can wear that undo the color blindness,
really? I didn't know that.
but the FAA doesn't have those approved as
Oh,
a like, why not? Your glasses are fine. My contacts are fine.
that's
It
right.
says right there, like, to fly an airplane, you must be wearing these glasses. Cool, done. But no, no, we haven't checked that box. We've had this technology for years. It is easily prescribable. It's an easy condition to fix, and it would open up all these people that have these dreams and aspirations of doing this career. Nope.
It's because, like you
No.
said earlier, it all works at the speed of government. So,
Yeah,
um,
it's unfortunate. This is a depressing episode, but I in no
it is
way
a
feel
depressing
sad
episode.
about doing that.
I'm gonna lighten it up a little bit here at the end, but I wanna mention, it's not just us in the airliners. I read a book by an astronaut who told me about well, the book revealed some stories about, you know, how they have to put padlocks on the, shuttle door so that, you know apparently somebody tried to get out one day, or it happened on more than one occasion, where someone was in orbit and they were like, "I've had it. I want out of here." They had to padlock the door so it could only be opened from the outside. Um, there are stories of firearms, the secret stash on board the space station somewhere, just in case. Um,
For
so it it
aliens?
it goes, you know, it goes far beyond us, and the government's solution is not usually the best one. So I don't know, but you're right. I feel more depressed now than when we started. I'm sorry.
You should probably see somebody for oh, wait, don't, never mind, don't.
Oh no, no, no. We gotta lighten things up. You and I haven't seen each other in a while. We both came back from vacation recently. I had a wonderful time. I hope you did too. I think we should uh, talk about that stuff. More of the fun activities that we took on our next episode. Now, you have talked about strokes. You have talked about finding your spouse in bed with the neighbor. I'm going to tell a joke to lighten the mood and end this on a much happier note. There were three nuns walking out down the street, and a flasher came by and flashed them. The first nun had a stroke. The second nun had a stroke. But the third nun didn't even want to touch it.
Oh my gosh.
That
Oh,
is straight off of the sixth grade playground that I've been carrying around with me for 34, 5, 50 foot, whatever, how
oh,
old I am. Finally got to tell it in public.
uh, I think people, listeners now have anxiety from that. Having to hear that joke.
Well, there's more fun and frivolity coming on the next episode of Cats on Guard. So stick around. And hey, if you have any mental health stories you want to share or anything else, send us an email to catsonguard@gmail.com. And we would love to put your story on the air.
Yep, yep. Just de-identify it, right? We don't want to get anybody in trouble.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to
Ready to sign
go.
off?
Yeah, I'm going to go pour myself a big fat cocktail because it's only, it's not even 10 a.m. yet, and I got to drink my sorrows away.
You mean coffee. Got it.
Hmm. Oh, fun story. Went to the coffee farm while I was in Hawaii on our vacation. I'm not a coffee drinker, but my wife did. Wanted to go to the coffee farm up on the side of this treacherous, treacherous drive up to the side of this mountain, like the kind where you think you're never gonna make it. Got up there, learned how coffee is grown, picked, roasted, whatever. Tried some coffee. You know what I found out? Still don't like it.
That's a lot of work to find out you still don't like coffee.
All right, I'm MC
Well,
Howe.
yeah, co-captain Richard Million.